What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL world? How you doing, division rivals? This is Stephen Hyder with Gay City Sports Channel, the sports channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. All right, guys, so good morning to y'all. Today's topic, we're going to do another one of these draft profiles, guys. I will return back to the running backs, but I want to take a break and break down some of the corners, just mix some things up a little bit, guys. That way I'm not getting bored with breaking down the same position groups time after time again. Today, guys, I want to talk about Oklahoma State cornerback Rodarius Williams. Rodarius Williams, to begin with, guys, is an interesting prospect to break down because he is the older, you heard what I just said correctly, the older brother of Greedy Williams. Right from the beginning, guys, we're going to get into a discussion about some of the nuances of selecting a player of Rodarius Williams' caliber, right? Because to begin with, guys, he will be turning 25 in September. So this is an older prospect by NFL measures, right? Now, let's be real. 25-year-old is a very young man still. But with that said, guys, in terms of NFL life, if you look at the contracts, he's kind of at the age where a lot of guys will be coming onto their second contract as he kind of gets his rookie contract. So that has to be taken into consideration, right? Because Rodarius Williams is certainly not going to be a first-round pick, so that means that you would probably put him on a 4-year contract. You look at a 4-year contract, guys, you're talking about him kind of being about 28 going into, being about 29 as he comes up for that second contract. I mean, some teams might see that as an issue, guys. I still think it's a young guy. I think it's more personal to the player because it may be harder for him to get a third contract, already being 20, basically 25 when he enters the league. I know he's 24, guys, but let's just call a spade, guys. He turns 25 in September. So, yeah, I mean, to me, that's more of a personal issue than it is for teams. It's not like he's a 28, 29-year-old. I think that would change the perspective a little more if he was 3 or 4 years older. But I still think he's young enough for NFL teams that this is not a huge concern.
He's got a great initial get-off, and then he's got the power. He's put some good weight on.
What may be perceived as one of his weaknesses, guys, can also be perceived as one of his strengths. Because he's a 25-year-old, because he played college football now for 5 years, he has some of the highest snap counts of any of, coverage snap counts of any player, over 1,600. And he has more targets to break down than pretty much any other player coming out at over 200 targets. There's a lot known about this prospect. That's why I'm really high on Rodarius Williams, because the one thing I will tell you right from the jump, guys, one of the best players in this draft class at mirroring receivers. When I say mirroring receivers, let me be very specific. I am talking about his ability to stay in the hip pocket of a receiver and basically close off passing windows. He shadows, he sticks with receivers better than pretty much any other corner I've really watched in this draft class. The argument being kind of the really top end guys. I mean, you could definitely make, your arguments that guys that are really up top high in this draft class may be as good, but they're not better than Rodarius Williams in that regard. Every strength has a weakness, though. So let me say this. If you look at his numbers, right, if you really broke down where he was being targeted, how well he performed on targets, right? So on the 2020 season, when you threw the ball 10 yards or greater, okay, so anywhere between 10 yards to 99 yards, basically, guys, he had 11 targets and only gave up 3 catches. The issue is, though, is that when you look at what happened under 10 yards, you see there's a little different story here, okay? He gave up a lot more catches. Now, what I will say is he mirrored the players perfectly well. He looked really good on film in terms of mirroring them. But there are subtle differences and subtle things you have to judge from cornerbacks, guys. And while you may be good at, mirroring a football player, being a very good mirror corner, if you will, it doesn't mean that you're very good at driving on the football.
Second and 6, there's the quick cross.
And that's one of the things I did notice from his film, guys, is that he's not always the greatest at driving on the football and getting in there and breaking it up. Although he's really good at mirroring, although I do think that he creates issues for quarterbacks to throw into because there's very tight windows when you deal with the player of Rodarius Williams' skill set. I do think sometimes he can be late to break on balls like slant routes, out routes, those little underneath, 1 to 9 yard route kind of combinations, he can be just a hair too late.
I had him number 6 before the season began. I thought they were a national sleeper.
And I'll tell you, anytime I look at a prospect, guys, I want to see what they do against certain levels of competition. So I can tell you his lowest graded game of the season was against Iowa State, which is a nightmare of a matchup for any football team. Iowa State has 4 players above the height of 6'6". Okay? When you look at a guy like Rodarius Williams, I will never question the kid's toughness. I'll show you a little clip here of where you can watch him line up on a one-on-one situation, which perfectly defines what this guy is. He is a man press corner that I think will play really well in a system like a cover 2 system where he can play aggressive underneath, basically. But if you watch what he does against players like Xavier Hutchinson, who's a 6'3" guy, and I'm going to get to Xavier Hutchinson because I think that was the marquee matchup I wanted to see personally. But also, if you look at a guy like Sean Shaw Jr. out of Iowa State, 6'6" wide receiver. I'll show you a clip right here where they're nose to nose.
With the help of Brees Hall, who hauled it 60 yards.
Kid's tough, man. This is a tough football player. He's not going to back down to a height matchup. Now, what I will tell you is this. When I watch games like, you always want to look for competition. When I watch games like against Oklahoma and stuff like that, I will say that it's not always. It's not like all the time this happens. But there are occasions where, another, criticism I will give, I wouldn't even say it's a criticism, guys. It's an area of improvement that you need to see occur in the NFL, right? Being in the right system, the right coaching, you need to see this improve. And that's at playing the ball, guys. He's got to be better at the catch point of getting in there, disrupting balls, because his coverage is really good, but sometimes quarterbacks will get frustrated and they'll take a shot. And to be honest with you, sometimes he does a good job.
But a whole different level of offense faced tonight. Rattler gets it out.
Sometimes he doesn't do such a good job. And I will say that he needs to be better at the catch point.
Out there. And Rattler will look downfield.
Now, anytime I see a guy and I think to myself, like, okay, this guy is really athletic. I want to see him match up against other guys I perceive to be athletic. One of those guys is Xavier Hutchinson out of Iowa State. Iowa State runs a very unique system, guys. They got Brock Purdy there as their quarterback. They got, like I said, guys, they got like 3 tight ends that are over 6'6". They got a wide receiver that's over 6'6", and then they got Xavier Hutchinson, who's like 6'2", 6'3". He's very much like a Michael Pittman. Little lighter than Michael Pittman. He's not quite as big, as stout as Michael Pittman, but the same type of game where you can use him inside as a slot, outside as an X or a flanker as a Z. The guy moves around a lot. I mean, you can use this guy in multiple positions. And boy, they treated us to seeing Rodarius Williams on Xavier Hutchinson quite a bit throughout this game.
And there's the quick crossing pattern complete to Hutchinson.
I love the matchup because I'm high on both of these players. I like both of these players a lot. And there were times that Xavier Hutchinson won the battle.
The Oklahoma State touchdown to give them their first lead. There's the out pattern.
And then there were times where Rodarius Williams won the battle.
Here comes the pressure off the edge. Purdy's pass is caught. It's the tight end.
And that's really what you want to see when you break it down. You break down a guy, right? You want to know, I want to see you at your worst. Okay? I don't want to see your best game. Your best game tells me nothing. It just tells me what your ceiling could be. Cool, whatever. I want to see you at your worst. I want to know where you need improvement, and I want to know what it is in particular about you as a prospect that needs improvement. I need to see the truth. In my opinion, your worst game, it generally speaking gives you the truth, right? Now, I'm not saying there's not nuance to that, guys. I'm not saying that sometimes a guy just can't have an off game. That's not what I'm saying, but I need to see you at your worst. I really need to see you at your worst to see how bad that worst is. And I got to be honest with you. It's not that bad. Rodarius Williams did not play that bad against Iowa State. I think it highlighted some of his weaknesses, right? He's not particularly good at breaking on the football on the underneath route stuff. I think he's got to be better at that kind of closing in reaction type, driving on the football issue that he does have at times. But at the same time, you can see the positives too, to where he's not really being targeted. He's lined up, step for step with guys, and no one's getting open.
Play fake. Purdy's got a lot of room. Look out. A wise choice by him.
Even when I looked at, like I said, Oklahoma, I mean, I could literally make a highlight clip where it's like consecutive plays where there's this poor receiver's out there trying to gain any separation he can against Rodarius Williams, and it's almost like a comical, film study here of like Rodarius Williams just absolutely taking this guy out of a football game.
It's tough to bring down in the open field. 45-yard gain. They over in the backfield. Rattler has time and
And a lot of times what I would see what they would do, to Rodarius Williams, and this is a scheme thing. This has nothing to do with Rodarius Williams. It's not his fault. But teams would basically run Rodarius Williams out of a play, then come in behind him into the flats. And that's how they would do this. If they had a receiving back, they would get him that way, or they would work a tight end or a slot receiver in behind him. They would try to high-low him, basically. They'd run him out of a play, then they would high-low him, basically. And that's really not on him. That's really a scheme thing more than anything. But the other thing that I did notice from time to time is that they would also hit him with, motion and movement, right? They would try to free guys up on him. They would try to create offense for their players when Rodarius Williams was lined up on it.
and on third down, Rattler flips it off. Mims has space.
So, a guy I'm high on, guys. This is a prospect that I like him. I think that he's going to be very good in the NFL. Draft value. That's where things get tough when you judge Rodarius Williams. A lot of the different scouting information that I'm reading about Rodarius Williams has him being drafted in the 5th round. I think that would be an incredible value to pull Rodarius Williams in the 5th round. I am fully in favor of a 5th round pick. Something tells me that even though he'll be 25 once the season kind of kicks in early in the season, teams are still going to love this kid's film. And there is a possibility you can see him go as early as a late day 2 pick, like a 3rd rounder, late 3rd round, or an early day 3 pick, like a 4th rounder. I love this guy in the 5th round. The Eagles, as an Eagle fan, guys, and if you're not a fan of the Eagles, that's fine. But if you're sitting there, I definitely think he should be in consideration in the 4th round. I do think those teams will have conversations about this young man in the 3rd round. It just really depends upon how the board falls with cornerbacks. How big is the rush going to be between the end of the first half, the back half of the 1st round into the 2nd round? How big is that run on corners, right? Because if the run is significant, then I can see a guy like Rodarius Williams kind of slipping earlier than people think, like a 4th round pick or even a late 3rd round pick. I could see that. But just for full, transparency and clarity here, he is currently stated to be about a 5th round value. All right, guys, that's what I got for y'all today. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Don't forget, if you want to support the channel, you can buy me a cup of coffee. Link is in the description below. Don't forget to like and comment on the video, guys. That's how we tell YouTube to recommend this to others. And with nothing else really left to say, guys, I will see y'all on the next video. Oh, yeah, don't forget to actually subscribe if you're not subscribed, guys, too. All right, y'all. Peace. I'm out of here.